Hey guys, and welcome to this hobby tips video on how to paint pale red influenced flesh on a Nurgle Plaguebearer. Okay, so this is the second one in this little paired series, I guess. You would have seen the previous one on the channel, which was doing a more blue inspired flesh tone, but this one we're going to be using red. And what I mean by that is we're going to be doing a kind of underpainting. So with these colors that I've got here in front of me, we've got some red and some blue, some orange, some lighter blues, yellows and pinks, and then a flesh tone and some gray there. And we're going to build up an underpainting using some of these first colors here, the blue, the red and the orange, to give us I guess the sense of blood under the skin. This is called subsurface scattering, and so we're going to create that kind of effect and then do an overpainting over the top and use our flesh tones over the top, and we'll get a really interesting look and hopefully Nurgly, right? So it's going to be something like an off human skin tone, I guess, is what we're going for. So if you haven't seen the first one, I'll put a link up in the top right hand corner there and you can go check that out, and I'll put the links in the down there for the rest of the Nurgle videos where I go through doing sort of underpainting, overpainting sort of styles. I've done one on Sloppity Bilepiper and a Blight King, and here we're going to be focused on the Plaguebearer. So I guess grab yourself a Plaguebearer and let's get started, eh? Okay, so to begin with, we're going to do this underpainting. So we're going to start with that dark blue, and basically you're just painting it all over, like almost like a base coat. So we want to just remove that black and give ourselves something that's a color to work with as our, I guess, undershade for this model. So you're going to see me just dabbing that around really loose, really painterly, just getting that blue on. And then once that's down, we move on to the red. And so again, for this one, we're just dabbing it on, you know, in areas where we would think the blood might come to the surface of the skin, so around the belly, across the tops of the shoulders, not really worrying about the undersides. You'll see me just dabbing it around on the back and so on down the leg, but keeping it relatively loose, and then coming back in again and doing a second pass just to really bump up that red and make it quite strong. But it's almost like a heat map, like you might see through an infrared. That's really what we're trying to simulate here, is sort of like hot spots of color under the skin. And so once that's down, we then move on to the orange, and again less of the model this time, and just moving through and picking little areas where we think we might want to see some even brighter color coming through. So maybe on top of the horn there, on the face, you know, tops of the shoulders, etc. You know, you're just moving through and finding nice spots, leaving less of that hot spot color on the legs. We keep that a bit darker, and on the undersides and so on, in around the sides of the belly, but just keeping that pretty loose. And then you'll see me coming in with magenta as well. And with the magenta, again, even less of the model, just small areas where we might see a change in color, that sort of thing. And then once that's down, we move on to the toxic mist. And now for this blue, it's just literally the edges of fingers, anything like that, down the spine, on the horn, etc. Just to shift the color away, because now what we're going to do is, once we've done that, we're going to then add those areas that are blue or mostly blue, we're going to now add yellow. And the yellow then will go over that nice light blue color a lot easier than it will over those darker colors. And so you'll see these nice bright bits of yellow, but it's okay to leave the blue as well if you want to leave it on some areas, but just to give you like a really big vibrant mix of colors, like a rainbow mix of colors for our skin tones to now go over the top. Alright, and now it's time for the flesh. So with the flesh, we're going to build our gradient. So we're using a combination of colors here. We're using a purple, a pallid flesh tone, some gray and some red to make this. So it's mostly purple, gray and red for the base tone with a little bit of the pale flesh, but we're going to begin by just adding that in all over, a little bit watered down, maybe 1 to 2 drops of water, and you're just base coating that, allowing some of that underpainting to show through. So you're going to see little flecks of red and orange and all of those colors coming through. And then as you do that, we're going to move on to our next layer. So that's basically adding more pale flesh to that base tone to create a kind of first layer step. And so you're just going to start to paint the folds of skin, the muscles on the arms and so on, paying more attention to the top surfaces, feathering it in. You know, you'll see me just feathering across to the fronts of all of those forms, just building in that light. And so you're getting dark areas underneath and lighter areas on top. And so once you've sort of done that, you're going to do another pass. So you'll be doing that probably twice to build up that color. And then once that's down, you'll move on to that sort of off flesh tone. So it's not quite the pale flesh, it's a little bit bit darker. And so with that, again, this is just building up those forms, hitting the light areas, paying most attention towards the face, the stomach, the tops of the arms, and so on, and the legs, and leaving the rest to sort of fade away, and doing that sort of faded feathering approach, and just building up that lighter color. So you might have to do that twice as well. It just depends on how you go. And then once that's done, now we're doing that fine edge highlight. So we're using a fine brush and just going through and picking out all the details. So all of the open wounds around the edges of the skin there, we're using that Power Flesh, just picking out all those areas, lighting up around the face, just working all of those light areas, doing a line edge highlight across the tops of a bicep, or the muscle sinew on a shoulder muscle there, the little boils and all the little details around that flesh, just picking those out and doing some little line edge highlights and some little feathered highlights, mostly again focusing on the tops as if the light was coming from above the miniature. So you're just working all of that in and creating some contrast. So you've got this dark faded color, dark colors underneath, and then these light tones on top. And so then once you've sort of got all that down, then we just do one little final spot highlight with a little bit of white mixed in, and just pick out some areas, the boils maybe around the face, on the ends of the cheekbones, or the mouth, or the eyes, or the eye, sorry, and just pick that out and give yourself some final little touches. And there we go, some nice red influenced pale Plaguebearer flesh, all done. So you can see once you add all the color glazing, which you can find on the channel, how to do that in those videos in the description. Once you add all that in, and Nurgle's fun bits, all the little dribbles and the little extra colors, you can see that nice yellow coming through in the front there. That's all done with the shade colors and so on. You end up with something really fun, and you've got that little flecks of red and orange in some of those little folds and the skin folds there. Got a little bit of blue in there, we've got purple, we've got all pinks and all kinds of colors just coming through. A little bit of flash of turquoise green in the eye there. Just really just playing around with those colors, some little neon green in some of those open wounds. Just giving you something interesting to look at as you go around. As you can see, I've kept to that fading, having lots of areas just fade into darkness, so you don't have to paint the whole thing. And this process probably took me about 3 hours for the flesh, and then another hour or so for all the extra little details, the color glazing and the drips and so on, and the base. So if you did this in a batch with like 3 or 4 models, something like that, you could probably get this down to about 2 hours a model, I'd say. You keep it nice and painterly like this, with a lot of feathering with the edges of the brush, just building it up, and you could get quite fast at this if you were doing a unit of them. But they're really fun just to do on their own, just to practice those colors and try different things, because Nurgle can be anything. You can literally choose any set of colors and paint the flesh that color, and it's Nurgle, right? So it's a very, very fun thing to do. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I'll leave a nice image of him at the end with the paint list and so on, as I usually do. But yeah, it's really cool. I hope you have a go at it. So I hope you've enjoyed this. Please hit that like button, subscribe button. It really helps me out, and I guess I'll catch you on the next one.